program started. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Brian Alcott, the Vice President of our Division of Workforce Credentialing and Community Impact here at Mercy University. And it is our pleasure to welcome you to today's Spotlight program, where we will be talking about our TA Pathways program that we offer through our CERTIFi division. Our Division of Workforce Credentialing and Community Impact was created at Mercy to extend our mission of educational access and empowerment and the transformative impact of educational programming to the entire community of folks from all backgrounds, all levels of educational attainment, that you're never too old to learn. There's always opportunities to take advantage of education, to advance your career, to learn just for learning's sake, for your own personal enrichment. And we're pleased to offer a broad array of programming through our CERTIFi division. You can find all of our programs at CERTIFi, that's CERTIFI.mercy.edu. And if you have any questions about anything we offer, you can always email us at certifi@mercy.edu. So it's our pleasure today to have a couple of special panelists. If we can advance the slide. We're going to have an overview of our program with Anna Gedrich and a special guest that she's going to introduce. And if you have questions, please just put them in the Q&A and in the bottom of your screen, and we will bring those questions to our panelists at the end of the program. We're really fortunate to have Anna Gedrich as our main speaker today. Anna is the Director of Programs here in our Division of Workforce Credentialing and Community Impact. She's been involved in higher education and specifically at Mercy University for a number of years. And has really curated and helped develop a number of our professionally oriented programs that provide pathways into certain careers and opportunities to continue your education. And Anna will be guiding us through the intricacies and I think some of the questions that emerge for someone who's interested in looking into becoming a teaching assistant in a public school. So without further ado, I'm going to pass the virtual podium over to Anna, and I will join you again for the Q&A section. Thanks, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for the CERTIFi Spotlight on Teaching Assistant Pathways. As Brian mentioned, my name is Anna Gedrich, and I am the Director of Programs for the Division of Workforce Credentialing and Community Impact at Mercy University, excuse me. I work with our team to design and build the programs in our division, but I'm particularly excited to talk to you today about the teaching assistant pathways, because I spent many years in the School of Education at Mercy University supporting students who are working to become educators. And I still consider myself to be an educator above all, frankly, and it's the most important hat that I wear in my job. And I'm very proud of it. So I'm sure that many of you have stories about teaching assistants in your lives, or maybe your children's lives. My own daughter was not yet 5 when she started kindergarten, and we were a little apprehensive about it because she was so young doing this transition. And she went off to her first day of school and came home so excited, talking about someone named Mrs. M. And we didn't know who this was, but my teacher thought she was so fun and so supportive and so helpful. And we thought this was great. And every day she would come back with more stories about Mrs. M. And we just thought, okay, this is fantastic. We knew who her teacher was, and he was great, but this wasn't her teacher. And we thought maybe it was a co-teacher, and being new to elementary school, we just weren't really sure. So we went to back to school night. And of course, as you can guess, we found out that Mrs. M was the teaching assistant in the class. And not only was she well loved by our daughter, but by every other student in the class and their parents and many generations before. So she really worked in her career to, to help usher all of these new kindergartners into elementary school. And for that, we were very grateful. And for years afterwards, she would see me and ask about my daughter. So that bond they developed was really a strong one. And that left a real lasting impression on me and on her. So So with that, I wanted to jump in and talk about our program today. So first, we're going to talk about what a teaching assistant is and what the teaching assistant does. That's our first piece. And then you might be wondering, why should I become a teaching assistant? So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then we're lucky enough to have some voices from the classroom joining us. Luciana Brandau and Jessica Horn will share their experiences with us today. After that, I'm going to tell you how you can become a teaching assistant in the state of New York. So they have very specific guidelines on that, which I'll go over. And then we will talk about the teaching assistant pathway to a teaching career. So we'll talk about that, and what that means for you if you become a teaching assistant. So what is a teaching assistant? First of all, there are a lot of terms out there that people throw around, and it's helpful to clarify what they mean. So I will say teaching assistant, or TA, which is the shortened version of it in this presentation. But many people say paraprofessional or para. They are the same. In fact, in the New York City schools, I believe paraprofessional is more common and people use that more often. Jessica, who is our visiting teacher, will talk about that a little bit later. But all of these terms are used interchangeably, and essentially they mean the same thing. So what does a teaching assistant do? So there are some clear guidelines for what a teaching assistant does. And one of the first guidelines is that a teaching assistant always works under the supervision of a licensed teacher. There always has to be a licensed teacher working with a TA. And that TA can work with individual students or groups of students on special instructional projects in the classroom. So that's one-on-one or in groups with students. They can help them with math problems or going over instructions, helping with writing, helping getting students into groups. So they can do any number of things. I'll mention some more of them in the next few slides. They'll also help students use instructional resources. So for example, in kindergarten, many teachers begin to teach math using something called manipulatives, which are objects like blocks that they can use to move around and help them learn math. And so TAs can help the students in the class with things like manipulatives, for example. So TAs can also help provide the teacher with information about the students in the classroom. So those relationships that they're developing, like the one between Mrs. M and my daughter, will help the teacher to be able to formulate tailored lessons for the classroom. So those relationships between the TA and the students and the TA and the teacher are really very critical. They can also help create instructional materials of all kinds, especially as they increase their experience and develop more facility with that with instructional work. They can also use their own special skills that they bring to the classroom in instruction. So if someone is a musician or an artist, they know a particular foreign language that's useful for the classroom, that can also be brought in. So you can bring your own talents into the job, which is wonderful. So why should you become a teaching assistant? So there are many, many reasons why. It is a really rich and valuable experience. The first and most obvious is that you could make a difference in children's lives. I'm going to keep saying this, but just like Mrs. M, made a difference in my daughter's life, you really can, have the opportunity to really closely affect the children in the classroom. There are minimal requirements to get started, so we're going to talk about that in a little bit. There's not a lot you need to do to get started to be a TA, and that makes getting through the door quick and easy. It could give you classroom experience that could be very valuable towards a teaching career, or just experience in general. So being experienced in the classroom, creating lesson plans, learning time management, working with groups, all of those are things that you can use both inside and outside of the classroom. It can help you develop useful skills, all the skills of teaching, plus many others. You'll learn from experienced teachers. So your supervising teacher is your mentor. Other teachers in the school could also become your mentors, but you're really learning from them about how to become a teacher. And there's nothing better than that sort of on the ground experience. And you have a variety of activities that you can do in your day. So, you could be doing anything from creating displays to showcasing student work, providing extra supervision during activities, collaborating with lead teachers, talking about possible interventions to help improve classroom behavior. You could be doing any of those things, one-on-one or with groups in the classroom. There's a lot of variety. And then also you have a school day schedule. So for some people, that's very appealing and useful to be working that school schedule. And then you have possibly your afternoons free and your summers free as well, just like teachers do. So a lot of people love that. So some other reasons to think about for becoming a TA are that the jobs for TAs are in high demand. So according to the New York State Department of Labor, teaching assistants are in demand in almost every region of New York State right now, which means that if you are a qualified person seeking a TA job, you have a reasonable chance of getting one, which is pretty great. The average earnings for a TA are a little bit over $31,000 for an entry-level position, and a little over $42,000 for more experience in the higher levels. So Luciana was not able to join us for this webinar today, but she did share some information with us about her experience as a TA. She has been a TA for about 2 years. And when we asked her why she wanted to become a TA, she said, "I decided to go back to the workforce when my kids started high school. There were 2 major challenges: having been out of the market for 15 plus years while raising kids and needing to find a position that would offer flexibility to be there for them. Our calendar and hours now are practically the same." So that's that school day schedule that I was talking about earlier, which was a real advantage for Luciana. So we also asked her what her routine was like at school. And she said, "I work in an elementary school, and the honest truth is that there is no routine. As a paraprofessional, I am assigned students in different grades and classes, some needing one-on-one support. I work with one student who has Down syndrome, who needs modified activities for all lessons. Some needing sporadic help depending on their needs. I work with other students who need occasional help with math or writing. I also help the teacher with clerical work and on keeping the classroom neat if time permits." So that gives you an idea of that varied schedule that I was talking about before. So I'm now pleased to introduce Jessica Horn. Jessica is a kindergarten teacher in New York City. She's worked in the South Bronx for 11 years and has been in education for over 20. She started off by teaching nursery school in Westchester. And so Jessica, would you join us here? Hello, Jessica.
Oh, hi, Anna.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much.
I loved hearing what you were saying about your daughter and Miss M, because I had the same experience. So
did you?
Yeah.
There are a lot of Mrs. M's out there, and we have to give them credit, right?
Yeah, so much. So I'm having a weird thing going on with my with my camera. There we go. So I just wanted to come on and talk about the teacher experience. And so I'll talk to you a little bit about where I work and what I do. So I work in the South Bronx. I am part of the New York City school system. So the New York City Department of Education. I'm a kindergarten teacher, and I already said this stuff. I don't have a TA in my classroom right now, but I have worked with paraprofessionals. Last year I had a para in the classroom, and I have had paras in my classroom for several years. What's going on with my mirrors? My window is turning, so sorry. So just a little bit about my school, because I'm in the South Bronx. There's, there are different school districts that have different makeup. So the makeup of my school is about 65% Hispanic, 25% Black. 95% of the school is a low income household, and they qualify for free lunches and free meals, breakfast and lunch. So a little bit about the paras in New York City. So the teaching assistants in New York City, we call paraprofessionals, and we just say paras for short. And they're a huge part of our school system. We may just say teachers, but we mean teachers and paras. And I think it's sort of assumed that paras are part of the teaching, and they make the magic happen in the classroom. And a lot of classrooms really wouldn't survive without their paras. So the different kinds of paras in New York City, there's different ones, like Anna was saying before, different jobs and different things that they have. So within our 3K and our pre-K classes, each classroom has a para, and that is more your typical teaching assistant. Exactly the things that Anna was saying before, helping with, keeping the classroom, but focusing on the kids' behavior, helping the kids, doing small groups with them. But in my school, the pre-K and 3K eat breakfast and lunch in the classroom. So they help out with that. They help with nap time. They help with everything. And a class would not survive without their para, and they are an integral part of the class. Another thing about it is the kids don't think of them as anything other than one of their teachers. So they just think these are my two teachers. They may see the difference in power, like balance in the classroom, but because one is typically leading the main whole group lessons, but not necessarily. The para can come in and sing a song, or, like Anna was saying, do a talent that they have, or read a book. But the kids go home and say my two teachers. And I think that's important because it shows their connection to each other, their relationship, and the partnership that they have together. Another type of para in the classroom. So those are specific ones to the 3K and pre-K, but we also have crisis paras, behavioral paras, medical paras. I believe there is English language learner paras, and a lot of these are individuals who are assigned to a particular student that they're in their IEP, or individualized education plan, states that they need a one-on-one support. So whether that is helping them as they're doing a lesson, reading to them, or keeping them focused. Sometimes it's 1-to-1 or 1-to-2, depending on the child's IEP. And those are the types that I've had in my classroom. And I think they are also considered part of the classroom. They are a team with the teachers. So my para last year, Miss L, I'll call her, she was one of the teachers. And even though she was assigned to one particular student, that all the kids went to her when they needed help, and she was always there to help. And she was an integral part of our class. She was helping not only that student that she's assigned to, and she was helping everyone, but she was also able to keep track and help out with that particular student who needed a lot of support. I have a couple other things about benefits or challenges. Anna, was there something that, should I just move on to that?
Well, so do you ever work with the same TAs for more than 1 year? Is it just usually year to year you have a different TA or para, or is it?
That's a good question. So for the one-on-one paras, typically, if they have a really good working relationship with a student, they'll travel with the student. Not necessarily, but like if, because the parent will often have a really good relationship with the parents. So, and once they make that bond, if it's a really positive bond, then they will move on from first to second grade with them if it is a positive bond, or maybe the next year they need just something new, something different, someone new. The pre-K and 3K paras who are in the classroom, and they're there for the whole thing, those typically, they have changed here and there, just like teachers change grades every once in a while. Sometimes the principal wants to shift it up and move teachers to a different grade. That happens also with paras. There are a couple paras that have only worked with one other teacher. So, we had Miss Flack and Miss Maldonado were always together. They were always they were always together until one of them retired. So, I think if they find something that really works, and they have a great working relationship, and it's not everybody who can work very well with 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds and the demands of those kind of classes. So if they find something that works, typically they'll try to keep it unless they need to be pulled to do something different. I think one of those things I wanted to mention is that relationship between the para and the teacher, because if you do find that there are two people who work really well together, they sort of, predict what the other person wants, or help out when they see something, or sometimes they can finish each other's sentences, sometimes like that. I think in that type of relationship, at least my principal would see that as a positive thing and want to continue it, because if it works for them, it's going to be a good idea for it to continue.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So TAs, they don't necessarily come into a school saying, "Oh, I'm going to work with second grade," or "I'm going to
No.
No. How do they know where they're going to be? Who assigns them to a room?
It's assigned by the principal.
Mhm.
And she does take into consideration what they would like to work with, who they would like to, if there's an age range or a particular situation. Because some paras are specific and they've had training for different things. Like there is such thing in the city called a diapering para. If you are certified for that, you're not going to be placed in a 5th grade classroom. But like, 3K and pre-K will still have kids in diapers. So they will most likely be placed in one of those. But there also have been some other changes, like our 4th grade and 5th grade classes are on the 4th floor. And we've had some paras who have difficulty going all the way up to the 4th floor because of bad knees or something. So she'll take that into consideration. I think a lot of the times it depends on what their skills are and how they work with others. Some kids need behavioral support. They may need to like go for a little walk or let out some steam. And I think there are different paras that, everyone has their own personality, and the principal really gets to know them. Our assistant principals are also very helpful in that. One of our assistant principals is our special education liaison. So she knows she has a very good idea of which students need what, and she knows the paras inside and out because she is their supervisor. So she can sort of decide who can be with whom and what works.
Mm-hmm. And so are paras only then in elementary school, or are there any beyond elementary school?
I believe there are. I'm not in middle or high school, but I've heard of, like, I have a friend who works in a D75 school, and she works with older kids and she has paras. But a D75 school, which is, for anybody who doesn't know, it's special education schools in New York City. They definitely have TAs or paras in their classroom. My friend she has a class called an 8 to 1 to 1, which is a specialized class where there's 8 students, 1 teacher, and 2 paraprofessionals. And those are high need kids who have certain things such as autism, or like I know she has a couple of nonverbal students, and some of them have some physical things that they're working on, or that they have. I'm not exactly certain. There's a lot to do with like the privacy of a student's educational IEP. So only the teacher and the paraprofessional look at that IEP. So the paraprofessional, the TA, if you're assigned to a specific student, they are allowed, and they are looking at that individualized education plan and helping to reach some of those goals that they may have.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. Do you mind just describing briefly what an IEP is? I think many people know, but not everyone does.
So if a child is in need of some support that may be noticed, I teach kindergarten. I often put in for referrals for evaluations, depending on what each child needs. Sometimes they come to me with an IEP. An IEP basically looks at what this child needs to succeed, and they have specific goals that are not necessarily the same goals for other general education students. So the goal could be something like, I'm working on, if it's a speech, there's different categories, but like, let's say it is a speech and language individualized education plan. Maybe one of the goals is I'm working on articulating WH questions, or I am working on answering in a full sentence, or things like that. So when I have a student who has an IEP, I look at that IEP and I try to make those goals, because in the end of the year, if students aren't reaching a benchmark, they're put on a list called promotion in doubt. But for any student that has an IEP, at least in my school, they don't get put on that list, because we're looking to see if they're meeting that goal, and they typically get promoted on to the next grade. They go on to the next grade whether or not they meet those goals, but it's our job to stay in compliance and really work to them meeting those goals.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining that. I think that was a great education for me as well. So just some quick extra questions before we get on to, I think, the things you wanted to add at the end. So what do you think are particular challenges that a TA faces in a classroom in particular, or a para? What do you think?
So, I mean, just from my own experience, of having my own para, I had a para in my classroom last year because I had a student who was in it, and he had a behavioral education plan. He had some things going on. He was very physical with adults and with students and with other things in the classroom. So I think there is an element of difficulty to this job. You're helping to get this child to, you're de-escalating situations. Sometimes it means, he just may need a walk away from people. There's too much stimulation in the classroom. He needs to feel that he has attention, or just to calm down. And I think one of the things is that it can be a rough day if you have a student who is in crisis. Another thing I would think that would be difficult, I haven't had this myself, but I am my school's union leader, so I've heard some of these people have come to me with issues. If there are, how do you say it? If people, like a teacher and a para, disagree, or if they're having some sort of struggle with each other, that can be really tricky, because who is in charge, and do you have to follow what somebody says if you disagree with them? And sometimes that's just worked through like mediation, or just having a conversation. I think sometimes it's a teacher struggling with how much they can tell the TA what to do, or the role in their classroom. Because I know that some new teachers may not have it in them to say, this is what I want you to do with this group, because sometimes that is what they have to do. They are allowed to work with small groups, and I think sometimes it may be tricky to plan in that way. I think that's some things that I've had.
Yeah, no, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, those are the same kind of things that happen really in any job. But, you know, when you have a situation where there's, say, two of you in the classroom, then I can see that would be a challenge.
Yeah.
So I would love for you to share anything else you wanted to about this. And then if you have any fun stories or a favorite TA you want to talk about, I would love for you to just do that before you finish. So.
Well, I did want to tell one, like, because I was listening when you were saying they can bring their talents into the classroom, and of course, it seems I have not had a para many years. I'm usually alone with 20 to 24 kindergartners, and that's really, really tricky. So to have somebody in the class is just to have another voice in the class, somebody to sort of bounce things off of or make little jokes with, or somebody, when a kid says something funny, somebody else hears it and I'm not the only one, because I think it's nice you have that sort of bouncing off each other. One thing we did last year, which I thought was really funny, on April Fool's Day, the two of us decided to switch roles, and not necessarily switching roles, but we looked like each other. We dressed up like each other, and like, I drink coffee every morning. So she stood there with her coffee mug, and she wears these beautiful scarves. So I wore this scarf, and it was just really funny because the kids got a hoot out of it. But it was really nice. And she was brand new to the school. So it was really nice for me to, you know, introduce her to our school, but now she's a full-time member of our staff, which is lovely. And it was just like really nice having her, and the kids could see that when we are happy and having fun, then they are happy and having fun. And I think that's another like great positive. The other thing I want to say about her, Miss Lopez, she, she's very organized, and while I can be very organized, I also have a lot of stuff. I've been teaching for over 10 years, and I'm what you would call a kindergarten hoarder, so I have a lot of stuff. And she was very good at helping me organize last year. At one point, like, when the student that she works with, one day he wasn't here, and she was working with the other kids, but she also said, can I help you organize? So, you know, but that's something she loved to do. I think I would never say to her, go and clean this and go and do that, but she wanted to do that, and it helped our classroom. So that
She
was
brought her talent. Her talent was organizing. That's excellent.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, thank you so much, Jessica. I appreciate all of this, and I hope that you will stick around because there might be some questions at the end.
Sure.
So I'm going to dive in and let everybody know how they can become a TA now.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. So with that sort of great introduction to the real world of being a TA, I'm going to tell you how you can become one. So in order to become a TA, you have to start at level 1. And this is for New York State. So just to be very specific, every state has its own rules and regulations, and this is New York State's rules. So the level 1 is really your base for becoming a TA. You have to enter this way no matter what level you end up at. You always have to start at level 1. So think of this as your base, but it's not so hard. There are not so many things on this list. So it's very manageable. So if you look at the list here, you need to have a high school diploma or GED to start out with, right? And then you need to take 3 workshops. The DASA workshop, which is an anti-bullying workshop, which is 6 hours. The child abuse identification and school violence prevention workshops, which are each 2 hours. And you can take all 3 of those workshops here at Mercy University and get them done. And once you've finished them, you don't have to take them again. So you're all set with those. You also have to take an exam, the ATAS exam. And the ATAS is a little over 3 hours, and it's 100 multiple choice questions. You set up an appointment and you can take it. There's plenty of information about this on the New York State Teacher Certification Exam website, which we'll share the link for later on. There's all sorts of preparation materials on that site as well to help you get through the test. And then you just need fingerprint clearance, as anyone does who works in a school. So that's level 1. And once you complete that, you would send that information to Teach. So you would get something called the Teach account, which is part of your New York State education profile, basically. It's very easy to set one up. You send that information there, and then you can apply for jobs and you can become a teaching assistant. And once you do that, that certification is valid for 3 years. So you can work for 3 years on that certification. So after that, if you wanted to continue to be a TA, an option that you have is to renew your teaching assistant certification, level 1, by just submitting a statement to that Teach account I told you about, which verifies your employment as a teaching assistant. That's all you need to do. And once you do that, you can work for another 3 years as a TA. So that's 6 years of working as a TA. Relatively simple. So after that, if you wanted to go on to level 2, you would need to have at least 1 year of experience working as a TA, which you would get if you were working under a level 1 certification for a while. And you need to have 9 college credits. So 9 college credits is usually 3 courses, 3 college courses. And you can take those courses at Mercy as well. So in a little while, I'll tell you what some of those courses could be that you could take here. And that process is very simple. So once you do that, you could get a level 2 certification, and that is valid, for another 3 years. So in this way, you could either be a TA for 9 years using this system, or you could actually jump from level 1 to level 2 if you wanted to. So again, level 1's that base, and you could go from the level 1 renewal or to level 2 if that's what you wanted to do. So level 3, the next level up, also requires a year of experience as a TA, and here you need to have 18 college credits. So that's another 3 courses. So 18 college credits is 6 college courses. Once you become a level 3 TA, so once you've done that, you could stay a level 3 TA for your whole career. So if you chose to be a TA and that's what you wanted to do, you could stay a TA, for the rest of your career that way, as long as you did CTLE. So those are continuing education hours, and you only have to do 100 every 5 years. So that's 20 hours a year. So it's a relatively easy way to sort of stay in that level if that's where you wanted to be. So the last TA level that's available is the pre-professional level. And that really is the same list as that for level 3. So 1 year of experience as a TA, 18 college credits, but you also have to be enrolled in a teacher preparation program. So that will allow you then to continue your TA certification for another 5 years, if that's what you wanted to do. And you can renew this if you've taken 30 college credits within 5 years, but most people who are doing this go on to become teachers. So these are all the levels of TA certification. And I realize that this might seem a little bit complicated. We will share this information with you after the webinar if you like, and we are here to help you if you have questions about any of it as you're going through. Again, just remember, level 1 is where you start, and then you just build up from there. You move up the pyramid from there. So I mentioned before that you can take some of these credits at Mercy. So if you wanted to take any of those 9 credits for level 2 or 18 for level 3, you could come to Mercy to do it. And we have a variety of interesting courses that you could take, like Spanish for heritage speakers, art and culture, elements of music, introduction to computers and app software. So any of these might be available to you, and more. There are other options out there too. And there's a new course that you can take that will be offered this spring, which is Contemporary Issues in Childhood and Education, which is an undergraduate class in education. So one of the great things about this is that if you take those credits at Mercy, you can apply that towards an undergraduate degree. So if you're interested in doing that at Mercy, you can enroll in any number of programs, like behavioral science, for example, psychology, English, history, math. These all work very well if you intend to continue on to get your master's degree in education so that you can teach. So that's a great way to start out on your pathway to teaching, is to apply those credits, TA credits, to an undergrad program. So Mercy University actually offers a 5-year program that allows you to get your undergraduate and master's degree in education in 5 years. So if you wanted to be a teacher, that would be a great way to go. And you can sort of fast track your way to a master's degree. And the master's programs that the School of Ed offers, there are numerous, but they include early childhood and childhood education, secondary education, literacy, special ed, and TESOL. And many students get multiple certifications. So you can say, get a certification in early childhood and special ed. And then you will be a tri-certification, they call it, and you would be able to teach in any of those areas, which is great. So I realize that that was a lot that we threw at you, and we have some more resources that we can share. And these resources, you know, I hope will be useful to you. We will circulate them after the webinar too to anyone who participates, and they will, you know, give you extra information that you need to go on to become a TA, including information from the state about how to do that, taking the ATAS exam that I mentioned earlier, how you apply to become a TA after you complete your requirements, and how you can apply to take the credits at Mercy. So this is an application, an easy one for you to apply to start getting those credits. And then there's also a program that the UFT, which is the Teachers Union in New York, offers, which provides eligible paraprofessionals with the opportunity to earn their first bachelor's degree. The program pays tuition for 3 to 6 credits per semester for undergraduate study. So this could be a way to finance your career as a teacher by getting your undergrad degree. So with that, we're going to go to Q&A.
Thank you so much, Anna. We do have a few questions. And I really want to thank you for, as you said, it looks complicated, but I think you did really simplify it. You know, I hope that our folks will take advantage of that visual that you created, which I think really presents that step-by-step opportunity for career advancement in this field, in addition to the pathways of going on only for teaching. So, you know, you mentioned the sort of that level 1 and the few things that you need to do. It doesn't look like an awful lot. But can you talk about how long that usually takes someone, you know, to take all of those workshops to make sure that they're prepared for the exam piece of it, so that they would be ready to take on level 1?
Sure, and thank you for joining us, Jessica. If you have any comments, please jump in. So the workshops that I mentioned are short and easy to complete. So one of them is 6 and the other 2 are each 2 hours. So that's 10 hours total. If you can, you know, find one available soon, you can complete that and you're done, right? So that's really easy. You know, the fingerprinting takes a little bit of time, but it's not a big, you know, a big burden to do that. So the exam, I think, is probably the most amount of time that you would need to like devote really to you know, to make sure that you pass. And you should give yourself time to study for that. You know, I would recommend, you know, give yourself, you know, at least a month maybe to study for it if you can devote the time to it. Like I said, the site has lots of prep information, and there are sites out there like study.com that have plenty of extra information for preparing for that exam. So all told, it shouldn't really take you more than, I would say, you know, a month or a couple of months, maybe at tops, to do this if you have your high school diploma or GED.
Great, that's not very long. What about you know, any costs that are involved in these programs? People, I think, often get nervous about any sort of educational track. You know, I'm going to have to invest so much to get myself ahead.
So the costs are relatively minimal. You have to pay for the workshops, but the cost of all of the workshops, if you took them at Mercy, you know, it is, you know, a little over $100. So it's not a huge amount. The exam has a fee. I would have to check to see exactly what that fee is. And it's not so high. So, and if you prepare for it, and you don't have to take it more than one time, then that's just a one-time short fee. I want to say that it's under $100. I can look that up, but I think so.
Great. And Jessica, I want to thank you again for your participation. You mentioned that you have a union role in your school. Are these paras, are they in the union as well?
Yes, they are. At all the schools in New York City, there's a chapter leader that's sort of in charge of everyone, not in charge of everyone, but is there to support everyone. But there also are two other elected positions. One is a delegate and the other is a paraprofessional rep. So the para rep is, if a para was having an issue specific to being a para, they can go to either the para rep or to me. Because we both attend meetings monthly, just to get information to our members. We do voting on various things that are going on in the city and the country. And I think paras are, I mean, the union covers almost everybody in the school other than admin, and then some of there's DC 37 workers as well, but paras are under the UFT. So they have a lot of the same benefits as teachers. They have the medical, and they have the ability to join something that we have called the welfare fund, which provides not a huge amount, but enough medical eyeglasses and dental and some other things, prescriptions. So the union is beneficial to all.
To clarify, I mean, this would be referring to those who actually are fully employed as paras by the DOE, not people who are stepping in as substitutes every now and then.
Yeah. Yes, they have to be full paras. Sub paras, I believe, I don't know the exact the exact details of it, but I believe if they are in a singular position for a certain amount of time, they can request to become a regular. The movement from a sub para to a regular para, I don't know the steps to take, but I know that they can take those steps to become a para in a particular school.
And I know you were alluding to benefits. You know, I would imagine that as, you know, city or state or public employees in the state of New York, you know, the benefits are attractive, and not just in the short term, but in the long term.
Yeah, definitely. What the union does offer, such as the ability to have a pension and to move forward with it. We're putting money into a TDA to work toward that. The union also offers everybody meetings to sort of go through like when you would retire and what you'd want to do before then, or if you need to take a leave. I just walked a para in my school through the process of what she needs to do to take a leave for a medical issue that she's having. So I think the union does provide that stuff, and medical, obviously the health care coverage, and also just having a representative such as myself. I am there when there is any sort of issue and we have to bring it to the principal, or on the other side, if the principal has an issue with a para, I'm there as their representative. So I sit with them and and listen to the disciplinary hearing or whatever it is. And then, if they do have an issue, they can grieve issues. It's a great place to work because the union does have your back.
Thanks. So, Anna, you mentioned, a number of things in terms of the pathway. I'm curious if, knowing that we have a lot of folks in the New York area who are not necessarily truly totally fluent in English, is that a requirement? Do you know?
I don't know. Jessica, do you know that?
I don't know, because there are some schools that are dual language schools. So, and there are specific para roles that are to help individual students. I think it would depend on the school and what they have. I think it may be, are they able to take the tests in a different language? I don't know.
Probably not. So I know we're bumping up on time. I just have a couple of more questions I want to put to you guys. And Jessica, you're probably in a good position to answer this. In addition to the time spent in the classroom during the day, are there expectations of additional hours of planning or collaboration with the main classroom teacher outside of the sort of school day?
So the union, we all have a contract. There's a paraprofessional contract and there's a teacher contract, and we each have our own hours that are listed, whether there's specific school hours that you are actually working, instructional hours working with students, and then there are others, such as Mondays we have professional development hours, and Tuesdays we have, it's called OPW, other professional work time, and parental engagement. And the paraprofessionals in New York City have their own requirements, and it's not the same as teachers, but it's very similar. Like, I believe teachers have to stay an extra 35 minutes on Tuesdays unless their school makes another arrangement, but paras need to stay like 25 minutes. The way they do it, it's very interesting, but there's, they have their own guidelines. But also I know that there are some paras who just come in early to help out a classroom because they know that it's going to help the classroom run more smoothly. There are some paras that, I get there probably very earlier than anyone else, but I get to school really early, but there are some paras who are walking in with me. So they don't have to be. Technically, no one, like our union fights for it. We technically don't have to be there till the moment our school starts, but that's not going to be ideal for a working classroom.
Well, and in addition to helping us out, I just want to say thank you for, the work that you do.
Sure.
As someone who's taught adults and college age students, I think the younger you go, the harder it is. And so, kudos to you and for, I know there's all sorts of reasons that folks do it. But thank you for your enthusiasm and thank you for helping us out.
Great.
Any last comments you've got for the folks watching the webinar?
Yeah, I wanted to mention that if anybody has questions about this presentation or anything related to teaching assistant pathways, you should contact us. This is our email address, CERTIFI@mercy.edu. We'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.